I'm in this freaking art history class, right? Because I need art history in order to get an art degree. I don't think I could ever be the type of person to get an art history degree. I just think I hate reading. So, I try to do as little reading as I can in a class as possible. And that's just kind of me. And I'm not illiterate. I know how to read, but if I can read something or I can draw something, then I'm gonna want to draw. I don't want to be there. Like, I'm kind of hitting that part in the semester where I'm like, I don't want to be in these classes, but I need these classes because I need to graduate at some point. So I need them. But I'm just like, man, I could be drawing right now. God. It's fine. Well, I signed up for this ancient Mediterranean art history class because my brain was like, wait, ancient Mediterranean? That's ancient Greece. And at a certain point, it probably will be, but I've been in the class for 4 months now, and we haven't even touched on Greece. We've just been learning about rocks, and it's fine, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting this, and it's fine, because it's like, okay, this is on me, I guess. I don't have critical thinking skills, but, it's fine. Here's an image. Boom. That's how I feel about it, okay? We studied Stonehenge for, I'm not kidding, weeks. There was 6 class sessions where we talked about Stonehenge, and it made me want to die. Because, this isn't what I signed up for. But I'm so grateful to the art department for having these classes. But I'm just like, what if I didn't have to learn about rocks, So here's the thing about rocks. They do different things. Ochre is like a natural paint. I think it's like an iron deposit or something. But if you put it on your skin, it's kind of like permanent a little. And it makes a bunch of different colors. And a lot of cave paintings are made with ochre because it was so easy to find because it's fucking everywhere. Limestone is one of those, like, this is in almost every statue you're gonna learn about. Almost every statue is made with limestone. So, like, it must be a soft rock or something, Diorite. We were learning about diorite and I was like, wait, that's from Minecraft. Yeah. Been learning about a few statues that are made with diorite, especially in like the Sumerian era. So it must be from around there. Which is interesting. Yeah, just been learning about rocks, just a bunch of rocks, and like the meanings of these art pieces. And it's like, the further we get into the class, the more interesting the rocks are. Not the rocks, but like the statues, because they become more like lifelike as they go on. I did enjoy like the cave paintings of like the horses and the bulls and the aurochs and stuff like that. Like that was interesting because I was like, these are the first artists. Isn't that crazy? And I like the statue of Venus. I think it's called something else though. I think it's called the Lady of Willem Bug or something like that. Hey, clay is a big thing. Keep that in mind. You need clay to write stuff. They use these tools and they would write into the clay, and then it would be a permanent record, basically. Yeah. And cuneiform is like one of the first writing techniques, and it was made in Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia is also like a place where a lot of farming stuff happened, and I think it was like considered one of the first places where like a surplus was happening, like extra food, so you were able to count all the food and like trade with other people. It's kind of like, it was like civilization is starting now, is kind of what the whole vibe was. I know China had a writing form that came out just a little bit after Mesopotamia, but Mesopotamia won that, so Um, there's a lot of like idolization in human art, which is kind of interesting. It's like these very tall standing statues, and it's weird because actually like body stuff is like a thing, like weight and like what kind of weight makes you more um like acceptable, I guess. You know, there'd be statues in Egypt where none of them have any fat rolls and they're all like very kind of thin almost. I mean, they have muscles, but they're not fat, you know? Versus there are some that kind of idolize the human nature that is weight. There is a statue of, I think it's a statue of Ka. I was just learning about it recently, but it's just like a realistic statue of someone with fat rolls, and they're just sitting there casually, and they're writing in a casual way, and this has never like been seen before. Like usually they would have this idolization of the scribe, basically, where they're standing tall and it's like a big motion of them writing, you know? But it's just a guy. He's just a guy sitting and he's chill, you know? I like that. I also like the statue of Willemberg. I think it's Willemberg or something like that. But she slays, she eats it up. There's a whole thing about how like ancient areas were really into like fertility and stuff, so like you can't tell if a character or like if someone is made to look like they're pregnant or if they're made to look like they are just like plus size and all that. But it's just interesting how like the ancient world like was fairly like kind of all over the place with how they idolized the human form. So that's kind of fun. There's also like the first like epics or like tales of heroes in like the Sumerian area. And these stories get told through history, and they kind of changed because no one had like a written like version of them, but they were definitely told by mouth. So they were just like, you know, like how America has tall tales and they would tell them over and over again, and then it would kind of change a little bit as it went on. So it's something like that. So that's interesting. I think the first, like one of the first ones would be like Gilgamesh. And that's interesting. There's some guy in my class who fucking is like obsessed with that tale. Like he knows so much about it, and every time he raises his hand, I'm like, this guy's about to talk about Gilgamesh again. Yeah, but there was this really cool thing where it's this little cylinder tool, and it would have like an indent of some sort of like drawing or whatever, you know? And then you would roll it over the clay, and the clay would go into the indent, so it would create a 3D image in the clay, because when you take it out, then the indent is like a little 3D image. And it's cool. That's sick as hell. Bro, that's sick. I wonder if people who work with clay do stuff like that a lot, you know? I don't do anything with clay because it's messy, but, you know, I think about it. Also relief. Stuff with relief is really interesting to me because I took relief printmaking, so anytime we talk about relief in an art history class, I always think about relief printmaking because you're carving into the square. You're carving into it to cause the paint to not go in those areas when you print. And so I always think about that. And so it's fun. There was actually, I think one of my favorite things was learning about, there was this little pebble way back when we first were learning about this. So way back in ancient times. And it had two little dots and a little smiley face, but it was completely natural. There's no like evidence that this thing like was chipped at or anything. This form is completely natural. And I guess people, I don't know if I'd consider them people at that point. They were like very, very, very early ancestors. And they were like, hey, this kind of looks like me. And so then they just carried that pebble around, and that's so cute. Are you kidding me? That's so cute. That's something like a child would do. That's adorable. So that's kind of cute. I was also last week I was watching Captain America, and I was like, wait, this is just like Otzi. This is just like the Iceman. Which is, it's so the whole thing with Otzi. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, and I'm not gonna correct myself, so it's fine. But the whole thing with him is that he was a guy who was frozen, and then they unfroze him, or they found him in like Austria or something, like recently, like in the 90s or something. And they found him, and they were like, oh my god, someone got murdered. And he did get murdered, but like thousands of years ago, and they just uncovered him because of global warming. So that was kind of slay. He got murdered. He got like shot in the shoulder or something. So he was running away from people, but he was also like a traitor because he had a lot of like spores on him from different trees all over the mountains. So there was like evidence that he like went all over the place. That's kind of interesting. I thought that was interesting. I guess like in Europe, he's like a big like character almost. Like people like cosplay him and stuff, which is kind of funny. That's like I don't know. Do people I can't ask, do people cosplay our US presidents? Cuz then I think about Hamilton. So, I'm going to revoke that before I, say anything. I don't know. I don't trust anything I've said completely because I am probably going to get a solid B in this class. But I'm going to pass. Trust that. I was taking very diligent notes, and now I'm like, man, I could be doing literally anything else other than this. And then I start just going to different websites on my Chromebook, and I just get distracted. But hey, I'll pass. Trust, I'll pass. I've got to do a research paper now, and I'm like, but it's rocks. All I'm learning about is rocks. What am I supposed to research? So what I'm probably going to research is different, like, animal religious figures that there were, the first furries. And that's probably my best choice, I think. Because I guess there was a lot of, like, way early in the day, there were guys that were like, oh, shamans. And shamans were like, they were like, yeah, I'm half animal, and I'm also a person, and I also got magic. And people were like, dang, we should worship you. And they were very, like, close to nature and stuff. So, that's interesting. There's different cave paintings of people transforming mid-transformation between beast and human. And that's interesting. And you know what I thought when I saw that stuff? I went, wow, that is just like Pirate 101. So, that tells you where my head's at, constantly. All I do is make references to everything I learn. And that's how I work. So, that's how I'm doing in class right now. I don't get to have an art class because of tendinitis, so instead I'm learning about rocks. And I'm having a great time, guys. It's totally not boring. Boring? I should quit. It's totally not boring and driving me a little crazy learning about rocks. Like, I'm totally chill with it. And it's kind of like, I'm slaying it. I'm doing me, Okay, that's all. Hope that was fun. Bye.